Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. Today I'm here at the Ruthven barracks. These are old ruins that were built in 1721 for an infantry detachment to protect the highlands. And they actually got into use a few times. The first time they actually defended against the Stuarts and were successful. They won the battle, had a victory. And in the following year they were attacked again. They got conquered and then they were burned down. So we only see the stones left. But that's not the brunt of our story today. Today we talk about these marshes back there. These are RSPV marshes, and RSPV stands for Royal Society for Protecting Birds. And this Inch Marsh is a 10 square kilometers wide area where there are a lot of birds that nest there, and it's actually a nature preservatory, so these birds can flourish there. And it's actually one of the most important wetlands of Europe. And if you go beyond one of these or two of these hills back there, you'll find a small distillery. It's called the Spey Distillery. Sometimes some people still know it as the Speyside Distillery, and that's the distillery we're gonna have a look at today. The buildings here on the distillery were not always used for distilling whiskey. They were actually used for milling barley. This building behind me used to be an old water mill for milling the barley that was grown around here. The water wheel is actually still functional, but it's not being used for the millstone, so it's just for decorative purposes. The old mill was decommissioned in 1965. So it was running for a really, really long time. The distillery buildings were built in 1962. They actually started building them in 1962 and only finished them in 1987. Yeah, they were private investors. They were running out of money. They were having troubles. So it was a really, really long time for building this distillery. It was finished in 1987, but they actually just started production in 1990. So this was the first time they made whiskey. That was about 29 years now. So next year, the distillery is going to have a big celebration for their 30th anniversary. The first whiskey that came out was in 1993 and was called Dramguish. Now the distillery was sold in 2012 to the Harvey family from Edinburgh. And the Harvey family is a very well-known whiskey trader family. So they're really big within the trading business. So they really know how to make brands and have connections to all the different traders. And they're also really, really big in Asia. So the Spey brand is actually a very, very well-known brand within Taiwan. But let's come back to the production here. Behind me is the milling building. It's not actually the old millstone that's running, but it's a new bobby mill. And by new, I mean the bobby mill is over 100 years old. So here the barley is being grinded down. They use a concerto barley that is grown here in the local region. So it's actually a pretty regional brand, and everything here at the distillery is handcrafted. As you can see, you have a lot of water around here. I mentioned the marshes earlier and the very, very closeness to the source of the river Spey. They have a small river here that's called the Torney, and that's where they get their water from. In the 17th century, they actually built a little creek from the river through the distillery that is used to run the water mill, and that's where they get their water from. So it's really, really fresh, clean Highland water. After the bobby mill, we have the grist, we have the water, and then we continue on into the mash tun.
Behind me is the mash tun. It's a stainless steel mash tun, and it can hold up to 4.2 tons of barley grist. The barley is mashed. That means you put on hot water and wash out the starches and the sugars, and the enzymes within the malt actually split up the starch into a very, very sugary mash that is later being fermented. Usually the distillery uses a non-peated malt, but up to 3 weeks per year they produce a lightly peated mash. And that means they're going to use a malt with about 25 ppm, which later is being reduced by distillation, evaporates lots of the phenols. So the lightly peated malt, single malt whiskey from the Speyside Distillery, is a very, very lightly peated malt. The mashing is done in a 3-step process, whereas the third mashing, the water is so low on sugars and starches that it's not being able to use for fermentation, so it's being stored in a separate tank and used for the next cycle as the water. And then we head off to the wash bags. So I'm standing here next to the wash bags. The distillery has 4 of them, with each of them being filled up to 22,000 liters. And the distillery is looking at a really, really specific character of wash. And how they do it is they actually have the right yeast, and then the fermentation duration is critical. They want to have a floral, fruity and fragrant wash that ends up in the distillation. And how they do it is they actually ferment it from 88 hours up to 120 hours of fermentation. First you have the alcoholic fermentation, and then you let it rest, and you have other processes going on. And these are producing these fruity, floral and fragrant characters. So the secret behind the Speyside Distillery's whiskey is actually the fermentation, or a lot of it is the fermentation. After distillation, you have a wash of about 8.5% ABV, and with that it goes off into the wash still. Here we see the wash still. This is the first step in the double distillation. Here we distill the beer up to the first intermediate spirit. You can always spot the wash still by the red color and the watch glass. What we see is it's a bit wide and also pretty straight, and it can be filled up to 11,000 liters and then being distilled. The flavor of spirit is very much defined by the spirit still though. The spirit still only has a capacity of 8,000 liters and is very straight, and it's not that wide, and there's no reflux bowl, no constricting piece, so the vapors can rise up pretty quickly. This would suggest that we have more oily substances within the spirit and more rough flavors. What they do is they don't distill that fast, so we have a good separation of the alcohol, and this supports the character of the Speyside Distillery as a fruity, floral and fragrant spirit. And after it's been distilled in the spirit still a second time, we have the raw spirit that then goes into the cask. So the distillery doesn't have any warehouses on site. All the whiskey is being shipped to Airdrie, where the warehouses are located. They are dunnage warehouses, and they used to be a bit more singular in direction with bourbon casks and some sherry casks, but now they are more into experimenting. They have Tawny Port casks and different other casks, and hopefully they will do a bit more experimenting and get even more interesting casks in the future. And if you just looked over there and saw Legganmore Distillery, am I in a different distillery now? No, this here is actually the site for the Legganmore Distillery as well. The Legganmore Distillery is a fictional distillery. The Legganmore Distillery is part of the series Monarch of the Glen, produced by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. It was a 90s, 2000 series sitcom about a family who had the Laganmore distilleries for years, and they produced whiskey, and I'm probably going to cut in something about that in here as well. And you can see how it was produced back in the days. So we're at the end of the production or in the distillery, and let's now have a look at the products and how the whiskey actually tastes. So this is it with the production, and now I'm sitting here with John Harvey McDonough.
Yep.
You're the CEO of the company, so you run this place.
Yeah.
And you're the 12th generation of the family here.
That's right, yeah.
That's really nice. Harvey, I've had it in the history. They founded the distillery. Is that connected to the Harvey? Is the family name then?
It is, yeah. The Harvey's business goes back to 1770.
Okay.
And they were described in Brian Townsend's book, Scotch Mist, as being a distilling dynasty.
Okay.
So they established or built 3 distilleries, York Distillery, Dunnist Hill Distillery in Glasgow, both of which have unfortunately have perished. But in 1881, built Bruichladdich Distillery in Islay, which is flourishing now under the ownership of Remy.
Okay. So you have a 12th generation. That's really a big dynasty. How involved is the family still? Is there anybody else involved here in the company?
There is. My father's the chairman.
Okay.
So he's still active. Although he's not maybe full time. So he's still very much the chairman, and he still chooses his own whiskies for chairman's choice. And he's very strong, very opinionated.
But you get along with him well.
Oh yes, yeah, we're good friends, very good friends.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So I love it when you have a family business, because there's just more involvement in the distillery. I just love it. Okay, so we're having 2 expressions today.
Yeah, we've got
the Tenny and the
Trutina.
Trutina. Let's have the Tenny first.
Okay.
What is it about?
It's really what we've done. We've always thought that Speyside Distillery was very good whiskey, but since we've owned the business, we've focused a lot on cask management. So you can see already the colour of this whiskey.
So it's uncoloured?
No, it's uncoloured, but the colour of the whiskey is coming from the cask.
So it's natural. Let's say natural colour.
It's completely natural.
It is coloured, but through natural ways.
And it's called Speitoni, but it's a teeny. It's called Speitini, but it's a tawny cask.
It's a tawny port cask.
It's a tawny port cask, yeah. So that's where the colour's coming from, and this lovely light.
It's a bit of a rosé colour, right?
It is almost, yeah. When you look at it, in a smaller vessel in the glass, it's almost rosy wine coloured, which is very unusual.
So it's 46% ABV.
It's 46% non-chill filtered.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. 46 always cries unchill filtered.
Yes.
So it's a really natural product then.
It is. It's very natural, and the colour and the fragrance is coming from those casks. We deal with family businesses as much as we can. So we buy in a lot of casks from a family business in Portugal that support us and support our business and give our whiskey this lovely point of difference. So the fragrance, actually my wife, Joanna, doesn't really like whiskey, but she likes this.
Okay.
So that's lovely and fragrant. I would say almost it's floral, and that's coming from the whiskey cask, so from the tawny port cask. So it's lovely and light. And even though it's 46%, you don't sense any heaviness there. It's got a lovely floral bouquet, the Tenny. Let's have a little taste.
I love it. Cheers.
Yeah. It's so light. It's a beautiful bouquet. It's almost, like a bunch of bunch of flowers, bunch of roses. I think that's why my wife's gone for this one.
That's what I was about to say. Wow. It's hard to describe. It does have a lot of intensity, but it's intensity with light flavors.
It is. When you visited the distillery, the new make whiskey that we produce, or the new make spirit, is really quite floral and fruity, which is unusual. Finlay, who you've met, the distillery manager, makes a point of quite slow distillation. So we start off with quite a floral whiskey at the beginning.
Yeah, also the what do you call it? The washbacks with 120 hours, that gives you a lot of fruitiness.
Yeah, that's quite a long.
I've seen the region around here a bit when we drove here and had a bit of a walk there around there. Lovely, lovely region. Is that the reason why they built the distillery here, your family?
It is. The Christie family built the distillery because of the beautiful region. But you know, whiskey is really all about the water. So the actual source of the River Spey is only about 3 miles west of here. So the source of the River Spey is called Loch Spey. So the Speyside Distillery is the first distillery that calls its water from the River Spey.
So you're like the original Speyside
We
distillery.
are.
Nice.
So we're very fortunate in that respect that the cleanest, purest water, which is the River Spey, the first distillery calling on that water is ourselves, is Speyside.
Yeah. So it was not chosen by accident here, but
No, absolutely
it was,
not. No.
intentionally to get the really good water from this region here.
Yes.
So was the marshland with the the Royal
Royal Society of Preservation of Birds, the RSPB.
Did that come later, or?
They've been gradually. The distillery was first, but this particular piece of land was relatively recent. But the Bird Society have been buying various pieces of land in the area to preserve the natural environment for the variety of birds that's here, and we actively support that.
Sure, it's lovely to have for that. So the Tawny Port was really nice.
Yep.
What's the Tritina about?
The next one is the Tritina. So this is. We talked about the new make spirit, the new make whiskey. This is then matured in bourbon casks. So Tritina is as true and as honest as possible to the whiskey that's been distilled in this distillery. So the influence of the wood on this particular expression is really quite limited, and that's reflected in the colour of the whiskey. So here is a lovely tawny port hue or colour influence, and here there's very little colour that's been given to the whiskey by the wood, because it's quite a plain bourbon oak cask.
So also 46%.
It's all of also
not chill
46%.
filtered,
Yes.
natural color.
Yes. So the difference in the colours is stark. But what we have here with the bourbon cask influence is just a light caramelly, again sweetness from the new make spirit, but almost a mild soft toffee. It's quite vanilla like.
Just
Cheers. So that's almost like a cream soda. It's very light. It's a little bit of lemon zest almost in there, but it's completely natural to the whiskey.
you do get a bit of a less floral, but there's still a bit floral and still light flavors.
Yes.
Zesty, as you said. The bourbon flavor is pretty mild.
It is. It's very mild. I would say it's probably more vanilla than anything else, but it's quite fragrant, and that's coming from the new make spirit, with a little bit of influence from the wood. You can see in the colour there. There's very little that the wood gives, so it's as natural as possible to the whiskey itself.
I like it. I like it. So you got a lot of history around here. You got the water wheel and all that nice stuff. And I've seen you have a wall with awards on them.
We have,
so,
yeah.
Did these two win any awards?
Virtually all of our expressions, the newer expressions, have been winning awards. When we first took ownership of the distillery, that we always thought that the whiskey was very good, but it could be improved slightly with better cask management. So we've gone around the world really to source from family businesses some interesting casks in Portugal, in Spain, in Americas, and also in the fine wine growing regions of Europe. And then we've released some of these expressions with the benefit of these interesting casks over the last 5 or 6 years, and then offered them for our customers, but also for the trade generally to get their opinion. And the Scotch whisky writers in the magazines have picked up on the work that we've been doing, and we've been very fortunate to win so many awards for just about all of our expressions. So we're very proud of.
Very nice. Yeah, I can see why you got the thing. I like it.
Cheers, thank you.
It's really nice. Yeah, the casks are really important for the maturation.
Yes.
So you're gonna expand that in the future, or you're gonna keep going with the more different casks?
Most certainly, it's paid dividends for us, and it's something that's that's permitted, of course, through the regulations dictated by the Scotch Whisky Association.
Ah, okay. Yeah, they actually loosened it.
They have, yeah,
this year, wasn't it?
Yes. So that gives the industry some more opportunities to experiment, and we are one of the many, I think, that's taking that opportunity as well.
So the customers out there can look forward to new expressions over the next years?
Yes, most certainly, yeah.
Ah, okay, interesting. Yeah, that's nice to hear. I like that.
It is, yeah. We like to be innovative. We talk about the family business, but a lot of the people who work with us are more or less extended family. So Finlay puts his, as distillery manager, puts his heart and soul into the business, and we would like to encourage him to come up with ideas as well for new expressions. He's also got a lot of experience in wood management. So we like to think it's a collegiate family as much as anything else.
Very good, very good. Nice to hear. So
it is, yeah. I think there's a time. It is the time now for family businesses, whether it's in food or drink or clothing expressions. It really is the time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for showing us these two expressions. Thank you very much for inviting us into your distillery.
Thank you for coming, Benedict. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, then please give us a thumbs up, and see you next time.